Have you ever felt a strange peace descend upon you unexplained, quiet, yet powerful months after someone you love has passed away? As if their presence, once so raw in its absence, has shifted into something higher, more knowing, more serene. What if that feeling isn't just memory or healing, but a sign that they are experiencing something extraordinary on the other side? Tonight, we enter sacred territory, because according to ancient soul readings and spiritual insight, something profound begins to unfold exactly 8 months after death. Not at the moment of passing, not in the early days of mourning, but far beyond the veil of time, as we know it, when the soul reaches a point of divine encounter. These aren't just visions. These are celestial meetings, 3 sacred encounters that transform the soul forever. What happens in these encounters? Who or what appears to the soul in that far realm? And more importantly, why now? Why 8 months? Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover may not only change the way you see death, it may awaken something in your own soul that's been waiting to remember. 8 months after leaving the physical body, the soul begins to stabilize in realms far removed from earthly time. It no longer clings to the echoes of its last life, nor is it lost in the memories of what was. Instead, it prepares for a moment that few traditions speak of, but that ancient mystics have always sensed: the encounter with the soul's original essence, the purest vibration of who it truly is, untouched by earthly experience, unmarked by karma, grief, or form. In this encounter, the soul is not greeted by a figure or a being, but by a presence. A radiant field of light and memory. It feels deeply familiar, yet impossibly vast. It is as if the soul is standing before a mirror that doesn't show a reflection, but a revelation. Here, the soul sees what it was before it was ever born. It remembers the first intention that brought it into existence, not the mission of its last life, but the originating spark that birthed it from divine consciousness. This meeting is not always easy. Many souls, even in the afterlife, are not ready to witness their true, unfiltered nature. The brilliance of this original essence can feel overwhelming, even blinding, because it carries the full memory of unity with Source. It strips away all illusions, the roles we played, the identities we believed, even the wounds we thought defined us. Nothing can be hidden in its presence. And yet, it is not a judgmental light. It is welcoming, warm, patient. It says without words, "You have never been anything but this." And in that moment, many souls experience something they never could in human form: a total release of shame, fear, and separation. They remember that they were never broken, never lost, never unworthy. They were always light, momentarily shaped by flesh and form. For some, this meeting marks the first true peace since death. It dissolves the longing to return to the physical, and it opens a new hunger not for reincarnation, but for integration. The soul no longer asks, "What happened to me?" It now asks, "Who have I always been?" And that question becomes the gateway to the next encounter. Once the soul has stood in the presence of its original essence, a quiet readiness begins to emerge, a sacred curiosity, no longer about the life it left behind, but about the deeper journey it has always been on. It is in this awakened state that the soul becomes receptive to a second encounter, one that is deeply personal and mysteriously universal: the arrival of the guide of remembrance. Unlike the first encounter, which was an inward return, this one is relational. A figure appears not always in human form, and not always perceived visually, but known through profound inner recognition. For some, this guide takes the shape of a luminous being robed in light. For others, it may manifest as a voice, a song, or even the scent of a memory. But all souls report the same unmistakable feeling: "I know you. You have walked with me before. This guide is not an angel in the traditional sense. It is a being whose entire presence is focused on one sacred task, to help the soul remember its eternal path, not just the life just lived, but the lives before, the lessons carried through time, and the truths the soul may have forgotten while in the density of physical form. Here, the soul is shown moments, not only from the most recent incarnation, but from patterns across lifetimes. A single gesture of compassion in one life echoes into another. A mistake forgiven in a past life ripples healing into the next. It is like watching a vast tapestry unfold and realizing you are not a thread, you are the weaver, and have always been. The guide speaks through light and intuition. Do you see now why you chose those parents? That heartbreak? That illness? That gift? And suddenly, pain takes on meaning. Regret dissolves into wisdom. The soul begins to see how every loss carved a space for deeper love, and how every triumph was a remembering, not a gaining. This encounter is often described as breathtakingly intimate, not because the guide reveals something new, but because it reminds the soul of what it has always carried. It's not a revelation of facts, but of inner truth, a truth the soul has longed to reclaim, but couldn't while burdened by fear and amnesia. And as the soul integrates these memories, it begins to glow literally in the realms of spirit. The light it emanates now is not only the purity of its origin, but the wisdom of its journey. And just when the soul believes it has remembered all it can, the third and final encounter approaches. As the soul absorbs the vastness of who it has been and reclaims the golden threads of memory woven across lifetimes, a quiet shift begins to take place. The soul no longer feels like a passenger of fate. It remembers it is a traveler, a participant in an unfolding cosmic dance. And in this sacred stillness, 8 months after death, it is finally prepared for the third and most mysterious encounter. The moment when the soul is shown its next mission. This is not a return to duty. It is not a punishment or a reward. It is not even a decision imposed from above. It is a moment of deep recognition. A divine mirror appears not to reflect the past, but to reveal what longs to emerge next. The soul sees it not as a list of tasks, but as a vibration, a calling, a pulse of meaning that reaches forward from the higher realms toward future lifetimes or energetic expressions. For some souls, this future involves another incarnation, another earthly journey, perhaps in a new body, culture, or time. But for others, the mission is not to return to Earth at all. Some souls are shown paths of service in non-physical dimensions, working as healers, messengers, or guardians for souls still in form. Others become soul companions for the living, what we might perceive as guides, ancestors, or invisible protectors. The soul does not argue with this vision, because by now it has remembered enough to trust its own knowing. What it sees is not a command, it is an invitation. A whisper from the divine saying, "This is what your love is ready to become." And it is in this sacred clarity that the soul experiences something truly transformative. A vow, freely chosen, deeply aligned, and anchored in spiritual joy. Moment brief in spirit time, but eternal in impact, transforms the soul's very frequency. It radiates now not only with memory, but with intention. It carries not only the light of where it came from, but the direction of where it is going. And in this, the soul becomes a living flame in the great spiritual tapestry, a soul that remembers, that serves, that evolves. And thus, the journey that began with death becomes a rebirth, not in flesh, but in purpose. Now that you've journeyed through these 3 sacred encounters, each more intimate and soul-revealing than the last, can you feel it? That quiet stirring inside you, that soft sense that maybe, just maybe, death is not an ending at all, but a breathtaking return to what is most real. 8 months after we say goodbye to a loved one, they may be walking through realms more beautiful than anything we can imagine meeting, not only their truest self, but the divine design that continues to unfold within them. And perhaps what's even more powerful is this: these encounters don't only transform the dead, they send ripples to the living. Sometimes you feel them as a dream that feels too vivid to dismiss. Sometimes as a sudden inner knowing. Sometimes just a strange peace that wasn't there before. These are not accidents. They are echoes of their awakening and invitations for your own God. So now I ask you, if your loved one is walking this sacred path, how will you honor it? What parts of your own soul are ready to awaken, to remember, to vow anew? The veil between worlds may seem thick, but it is thinner than breath, and the soul, once touched by eternity, will never forget the way back. Thank you for walking this path with me today. If this message stirred something within you, share it, comment below, and know this: you are never alone. They are closer than you think.